Hey there class, my name is Loden Harp, and today we are going to be talking about the individual values, perceptions, and reactions of individual in the context of the workplace, and how to best understand and deal with these personal aspects. As we move on to our first slide, we're going to begin with discussing attitudes. Attitudes are complexes of beliefs and feelings that people have about specific ideas, situations, or other people. They're formed through a combination of our personal values, our experiences, and personalities. A good way for a superior to foster positive attitudes in the workplace is increasing employee engagement. Engaged employees give their full effort of their jobs. Disengaged workers do not perform close to their potential capability. Engagement is enhanced in the workplace when employees have clear goals, have the resources needed to do a good job, get meaningful feedback on their performance, are able to use their talents, are recognized for doing a good job, have positive relationships with coworkers, have opportunities to learn and grow, and have supportive leadership. So now, let's take a second and analyze the position that you're in. Are you a superior or are you a subordinate? If you're in charge of employees, look at one or two areas you can increase employee engagement. Maybe that means recognizing a job well done or providing outlets for employees to use their talents. As a subordinate employee, meaning you have a boss, try asking your boss for clear goals and roles in your position or for extra resources you need to do your job well. Whether you're an employee or employer, you can exercise the practice of building positive attitudes in the workplace through employee engagement. Let's move on to the next slide as we discuss more aspects of intrinsic aspects of individuals. Values and emotions are very important in the workplace. Personal and work values influence important individual and organizational outcomes, including performance and retention, and are often considered to be important work outcomes in themselves. There are several different types of values to consider under the umbrella of value. They range from terminal values, which are long-term life goals, to instrumental values, which are the preferred means of achieving those long-term life goals. Within the workplace, there are intrinsic work values, which are relating to work itself. And then there are extrinsic work values, which are the outcomes of doing work. Of course, there's going to be conflict between values, whether that's intrapersonal conflict, value conflict, which is the conflict between happiness and the long-term value of your career. There are times that you have to ask yourself, do I want to spend time with my family or longer hours at the office in order to get that promotion? There's also interpersonal value conflict, which is clashing values between two people. The last value conflict is when an employee's values conflict with the values of the organization. Can you imagine being pro-life and working for Planned Parenthood? There would be a daily check in your spirit, and it would make it almost impossible to do your job well. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, class, as we discuss the role of emotions, affect, and mood in behavior. As a female, I can attest to how minor changes in mood or emotions can greatly affect my overall behavior. Learning the role of emotions, affect, and mood in correspondence with behavior will allow you as a subordinate employee or a superior to take a step back when an employee acts out of character to look for the underlying issue. Emotions are intense, short-term reactions directed at something or someone and create a state of physical readiness. The quality of employees' emotional exchanges with their leader influences the tone of the work group. Effective leaders know how to positively influence their own emotions and emotions of others, as well as motivate to engage in certain, probably positive behaviors. Unlike emotions, moods are short-term emotional states not directed at anyone. Employees' moods can be greatly influenced by the interactions from other coworkers and their superior. Affect is the tendency to experience a particular mood. whether it's positive affect, which is high energy and positivity, or negative affect, which is feelings of being upset, fearful, or distressed. An employee will have particular affects. Moods and emotions can influence our satisfaction with our jobs and our employers. Higher positive affect is related to increased creativity, openness, new information, and efficient decision making. Negative affect is related to counterproductive work behaviors. It's important to recognize the emotions, mood, and positive or negative affectivity of others in order to strategically cultivate positive relationships in the workplace. Now, let's move on along to the next slide as we discuss perception and attribution. In connection with perception, which involves interpretation of the environment, attribution refers to the way we explain the causes of other people's behavior and achievements, as well as our own, in connection with understanding why people do what they do. So, perception is the interpretation of what is happening, and attribution is simply an explanation of why a situation is occurring. So, they go hand in hand. There are two types of attribution, internal and external. Internal factors are having to do with the individual's ability or effort, while external factors are having to do with the environment, like lack of resources or other people. When a situation occurs, especially a negative one will look for someone or something to blame. Either he blames himself, internal factors, or something else, external factors. He's wanting to attribute his negative situation to something. The same goes with a positive situation. So in my experience with attribution, I like to blame my mistakes on anything but myself. But this can be dangerous because if I'm always blaming someone or something else, when am I ever going to learn that it just may be my fault? I will continue to be a bad employee, friend, and wife if I continue to solely blame my mistakes on others or other circumstances. Okay, let's move on to the next slide about stress. We just started the semester, but you may be feeling it already. Stress is our response to a strong stimulus, such as seeing 3 assignments due Sunday at midnight and it's Sunday afternoon. There are 3 stages in the stress process. You begin with alarm, because panic has just set in regarding the task set before you. You move on to resistance, where you resist the effects of the stressor in the effort to do the task before you. So this resistance phase cannot last too long because you'll end up exhausted and burnt out. That is the 3rd phase, which is exhaustion. As an employer, it's important to recognize the phases of stress in employees. If you see you've placed an incredible amount of work for one person to do and they're panicked, help them with a game plan. Do you see one employee on the brink of exhaustion? Well, re-energize them to stick in the resistance phase to finish the project. It's important as an employer or employee to recognize the phases of stress, not only in others, but in yourself, in order to not fall off the exhaustion phase. All production is lost at this point. As we conclude the presentation on this next slide, I want to ask you a question that you'll answer in your discussion boards. Why is it important to understand emotions, affect, and mood and apply this knowledge in the context of the workplace? I mean, why should you care? Shouldn't your main priority be to get your work done, not to interpret if your employee or employer has a positive or negative affect towards something? I want to know why it's important. I want to know why it's important we learn this and how we can apply it to the workplace. Thank you.
Cool.
Cool.